we just got a massive new Quest 3 update that comes with some long-awaited features, as well as some new VR headsets and big VR game news that you don't want to miss. So let's dive right into it. Now Meta released a huge new software update known as V83 that will finally come with some big changes that a lot of users were hoping for. So let's start it off with the first thing that you'll probably notice, and that is the completely evolved navigator UI. Because when you now select an application from within your home screen, it will now finally give you the option to remove it from your library altogether. And until now, it was only possible to hide your apps in your menu, which means that no matter what, they would still show up under that hidden folder. So luckily, with V83, you can now completely remove games or applications from your device that you no longer want. And secondly, there's now also a new dedicated Worlds tab. And this is of course where you will find all your Horizon Worlds destinations. But that also means that these will not show up anymore in your basic app overview. Since beforehand, this actually led to a lot of frustration from users because of these Horizon Worlds completely cluttering their library. And worst of all, it wasn't even possible until now to get rid of them altogether. And besides that, a nice and easy change is that you can now very quickly switch between mixed reality and VR mode by clicking on either of the new buttons named Pass-Through or the Loft. But if you still have the older system UI, then you can luckily easily switch between them. Now to do this, go to your settings and look for the Advanced tab. And here, you'll be able to toggle on a new navigator system after quickly restarting your headset. Now of course, there are also some smaller improvements, such as the avatar customization, as well as how you can call friends or invite them to your home environment. However, another change that came with this update that a lot of people don't know about is that we also got an additional new home environment known as the Bloomhouse Forest background. Now on its original release, the immersive homes consisted of 4 basic backgrounds. Those were known as Horizon Central, Midnight, Valley, and Oceanarium. But the 5th new option known as Bloomhouse Forest only recently got added. But since this was not in their public test channels, a lot of people don't know about this one. But Meta didn't stop there, because we also saw the release of a new fully dedicated Quest 3 application, which is known as Photon, which lets you browse to a massive library of 3D videos, as well as let you convert 2D footage into 3D itself. Now firstly, in here, you'll be able to scroll to a near infinite amount of 3D content, similar to how you would on any other social media. But then of course, with some extra 3D immersion, as well as some nice spatial lighting. And you can also choose to upload your own videos here, or even create some with videos that you already have on your phone or headset. But best of all is that this official app is completely free, which is pretty nice, since it is often this type of software that lets you freely create 3D material and convert it from standard flat screen videos that can cost quite a lot. But we also got the release for the next line of PC VR headsets from Pimax, which are better known as the Pimax Crystal Super. Now, while their previously standard Crystal Super, which was called the 50 ppd model, has been out for quite a while now, we did now get some new variants that take it even further. And the first one is the 57 ppd Crystal Super that has a much higher pixel density as the name suggests. Although, it does trade this in for a smaller field of view. While on the other hand, there's also the Crystal Super Ultra Wide that has a massive horizontal field of view of nearly 140 degrees, but that does keep it at that OG 50 pixels per degree. So with these 2 additional versions, it kind of gives you multiple options depending on what you are looking for in a VR headset. Luckily though, no matter which variant you choose, they will always come in at that same price cost of $1,735. And with their standard upcoming Black Friday deals, you'll most likely also get a nice reduction on the total price in general. And by far my favorite feature is that no matter which version you take, you can always swap out the optical stack with another one if you eventually want to upgrade it in the future. So yeah, this makes it basically possible to technically reload your headset when their next micro OLED version comes out, for example, without you having to buy a complete new unit for it. But we also got the release of a new VR headset from Samsung, and that is none other than the Galaxy XR. Now this is the latest VR headset from Samsung that comes with some crazy specs. For example, it rocks the new XR2 Plus Generation 2 chip, while also having some dual 4K micro OLED displays that can give you that crisp and colorful looking image. But while it is a standalone headset, it does come in at a price tag of a whopping $1,800. And keep in mind that this doesn't even include the controllers yet at all. So at the end of the day, it is probably closer to an Apple Vision Pro competitor than it is to that of the cheaper Quest 3. But either way, it is great to see that Samsung, together with Google, is finally getting back into the VR headset business. But before we get to the big VR game news that you don't want to miss, let's first have a quick word from the company that made this video possible. Because none other than Cat VR, who are known for creating VR treadmills that look like they come straight out of Ready Player One, are once again taking virtual reality to the next level. Because while we are normally limited by the boundary system inside our VR experiences, it is Cat VR that has created these VR treadmills that let you run and jump without any limitation. And since their most recent version, which is known as the C2 Plus Enhanced, is compatible with every VR headset that you can think of, it is also often considered as the dream upgrade for any VR user. And they even go so far that it has things like haptic feedback built into it, as well as a vehicle hub, which will make it feel even more realistic when you're racing on a track or flying through the sky. And as a cherry on top, you can also use the code VRelity for a whopping $130 off on your entire purchase. So for those who are interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. And that gets us to the VR game news, which starts off directly with the big release of the anticipated VR game known as Reach. Because this action platformer from the developers of Endreams is probably one of the best new AAA VR experiences out there. And that can be seen in its compelling narrative to its high production value, as well as the satisfying puzzle solving and intense combat that you'll be using throughout it. And while on launch, some people did experience some problems when they were using Steam Link, for example. These should now be fixed in their latest updates. Either way, I think that for many, this might be a big contender of VR Game of the Year. But that gets us to the next title, which is none other than Thrill of the Fight 2. Now this fast-paced boxing simulator is exiting its early access and finally getting its full release after more than a year. And that also means that players will now have access to their single-player mode and expanded competitive features. So that will now unlock all of the originally planned content and modes that weren't available until now. And next up, we have the announcement and release of the new OST 8 from Beat Saber. So unlike their standard DLC packs, their OST always have been free updates that come with a bunch of new songs for you to try out. For example, their last OST 7 came with 5 of them. Although, do keep in mind that this is for Quest and PC VR, with the PlayStation VR 2 version sadly not receiving these new OSTs. Which gets us to a brand new VR game, and that is Tracked Shoot to Survive. Now this is a single-player VR adventure that is exclusive to the Quest 3 and Quest 3S. And in it, you have crashed in the Canadian wilderness after someone has shot down your plane. And your main mission in here is to rescue your lost sister. And of course, to be able to survive, you'll be hunting prey and crafting weapons while you try to fend off all the wild animals and foes that are coming your way. But besides all these paid games, we also got some nice new additions to a completely free-to-play title, and that is none other than Cards and Tankards, because they released their so-called Town update, which introduces a brand new social area with board games, as well as being able to now brawl it out with your decks against intermediate and expert opponents, making this still the closest you can get to Hearthstone or Yu-Gi-Oh! Inside VR. But that is not all, because there are also a lot of free Steam VR games that you can get for your Meta Quest 3 headset. So click on the video that you see on screen right now to make sure you don't miss out on that. And of course, stay awesome.